In this step, let's talk about versioning your REST API. Let's start with understanding what is the need for versioning. You have built an amazing REST API and you have hundreds of consumers who are making use of your REST API. However, you need to now implement a breaking change. A good example is splitting name into first name and last name. You have this API live currently. You are writing one name which contains first name, last name, and middle name, everything together. You'd want to split it up. You'd want to split it up into first name, last name, middle name, and you'd want to return individual values back. Can I directly implement this change into production? The best practice is not to directly implement this change in production. Why? Because your consumers are expecting the response back in this structure. If you change the structure of the response, then all your consumers get impacted. Whoever is making use of this API will need to update their code immediately to make use of the new structure that we have implemented. And that's not good. Whenever I make an API change, I should not force my customers also to make an immediate change. And that's why whenever you have breaking changes to implement, we would version our REST APIs. We will call this one as version 1. We will call this as version 2. We will leave the version 1 as is. And when the consumers are ready, they can shift from version 1 to the version 2 of the API. This will give your consumers the flexibility to switch to the new version of the API whenever they would want to. There are a number of ways you can implement versioning for your APIs. You can version based on the URL. Over here, you can see that we are making use of different URLs for person v1 and person v2. So that's one option. Another option is to use a request parameter. For example, version is equal to v1, version is equal to v2. Another option is to make use of a request header. And the last option is to do it based on the media type or the MIME type. What we'll do in this step and the next step is to explore these options further. Let's get started with implementing a basic version of URL versioning. So I would want to create a new controller. So I'll go into REST Web Services. I'll do a control N. I would want to create a new class. I'll call this versioning person controller. I'll put it into a package RESTful web services.versioning. And I would say finish. So this would be a REST controller. And we would want to start implementing the first version, localhost 8080/v1/person. So at get mapping /v1/person, and we would want to return public person get first version of person, and let's return a new person with single name. So I'll call this person v1, where we are storing the entire name as 1. Bob Charlie. So I'll go ahead and create this class, create the class person v1. I'll create it in the same versioning package and say finish. And over here, private string name. I'll do a right click, source, generate constructor using fields. And I would generate the constructor. So the constructor is created. Let's go ahead and generate the setters as well. Getters and setters, right click source, generate getters and setters. I'll just get the getters. So this would generate the get name method and the last thing I would generate is the toString method. So generate toString and say generate. This looks good. So we have the person v1 class and we have the versioning. Let's go over to the versioning person controller. Let's organize inputs. Org Spring Web Bind Annotation REST controller and Org Spring Framework Web Bind Annotation Get Mapping would be imported in. This would be returning person v1 back. So let's fix that as well and save this. Now if I go over to this URL, v1 person, you should see Bob Charlie come back in. Nothing fancy in here, very, very simple things. And now if I would want to implement a different version of this specific API with the new structure for person, what I would need to do is to create a copy of it. So if the URL will be different. So instead of v1, we'll be calling it as v2. And this will be second version of person or second person v2, whatever. And however, this one actually will be using the second version of the person. Let's go ahead and create person v2, create class person v2. I'll take the default source folder. The package would be REST Web Services versioning. That looks good. Finish. And over here, we would want to have a name object. So I would want name. And I would actually create a class name. Let's go ahead and create a class name. And this would have private string first name. And it would have private string last name. And you can add in all the others in here. I want to generate constructor using fields. So let's do that. Let's generate the getters and setters as well. So let's do that. Generate and getters and setters. I'll only generate getters. So generate getters and also let's generate toString method as well. So we have everything ready. Let's format this, save this. So we have the name class ready. In person v2, we would want to be able to create a name and set it in. So let's generate a constructor. So let's generate a constructor first. Generate constructor using fields, using the name. Let's generate a getter. And let's generate toString as well. Awesome. All this looks good. So let's save this. And in the versioning controller, what we want to do is to now create person v2. And to create person v2, we need to create new name. And let's use Bob as the first name and Charlie as the second name. So this looks good. Let's now go and say v2 version. And now you can see that the response is coming back in the new structure. Name, first name, last name. In this step, we talked about the fact that versioning REST API is one of the solutions you would want to consider when making breaking changes. We also talked about the fact that there are a number of options for implementing versioning for your REST API. We started with talking about URI versioning. In URI versioning, we use different URLs for different versions. For v1, we are using v1 in the URL, and for v2, we have v2 in the URL. So depending on the specific version a consumer wants, they can hit the right URL and they would be able to use that specific version of the API. Let's explore a few other options in the subsequent steps.